Hi, so in this video, I'm going to introduce student loans, and we're going to start by talking about the different type of loans that you can get as a student. So the main types are federal loans and private bank loans. So federal loans are loans that are taken out by the government, and usually a student has to fill out what's called the FAFSA form, and that stands for Free Application for Federal Student Aid. And that form is income-based. So they do ask for income information, either of the student or the student's parents, and that's different than a private bank loan. The student applies through the bank website usually, and that will be based on credit. And that can be an advantage or a disadvantage depending on the student. So if the student has really good credit, then that could be an advantage if they have good credit and maybe they can pay off their loan right away. But a lot of students find that the federal loans are an advantage and offer a better loan for them. The downside to a federal loan is that oftentimes there's a lower cap, so they may not pay for all of the student's school, whereas the bank loans can have a higher cap, but that comes with oftentimes a higher interest rate. Not necessarily. I mean, this all can change, but these are just generalizations. And then the other thing with the government loans is oftentimes they can have a little bit more flexibility. And that could come in the form of maybe income-driven repayment plans. So you pay depending on how much money you make after you get out of school, or and that impacts your monthly payment, or loan forgiveness options. So there's programs where depending on the type of work you do after you graduate, you might even be able to get some of your loan forgiven, meaning you don't even have to pay some of it back, or even extended deferment where they give you a little bit more time to pay off your loan. So just some things to think about. And like I said, it's always good to look into this stuff before you sign up for a loan. So let's look at time periods for a loan. A student loan is much different than a car loan because while the student is in school, they don't have to repay the loan. They don't have to make payments until after they are out of school. So there's usually a grace period after graduation called deferment. A lot of times loans are automatically deferred after school. A lot of times it's 6 months. So it's a good thing to be aware of because sometimes students might even be in a position where they can make payments right away. And so they want to actually contact their loan company and ask for that. But usually loans are automatically deferred until the student until a certain period of time, usually it's 6 months after the student graduates. So to calculate the time period before repayment, this is also called the accrual period, where interest is accruing. We're going to add the number of months after the loan begins where the student is enrolled in college, with the number of months deferred. So let's look at this example to put this all together. So Kara takes out a loan 4 years and 4 months before graduation. Her loan is deferred for 6 months. How long is her before repayment or accrual period in months? So we're going to change all of the years in months. So I'm going to look at first when she's in school. So she was in school for 4 years and 4 months. And then it was deferred for 6 months. And we're going to add all that together. So the first thing we need to do is get the years into months. So if you want to get years into months, all you have to do is take years times 12, and that will give you the number of months because there's 12 months in a year. So we're going to do 4 times 12 and then plus the 4 months plus the 6 that was deferred. And we're going to add that all together. So we've got 48, 4 times 12 is 48, plus an additional 4 months, plus the 6 deferment months, and you get 58 months total. And that's an important number because that represents the amount of time that she takes out this loan, and it's accruing interest the entire time, but payments are not being made on it. So this is going to be important. We'll see in future examples where we have to calculate the interest before that repayment time period. So the repayment period, so that's the period that the student starts making payments. And so after they're out of school and past their deferment period, then they have to start making monthly payments on their loan. And they will usually have a set number of years which they have to pay the loan back. This is called the term of the loan, and it's just the number of years students will have to take to repay their loan. Most commonly, student loans are a term of 10 years. Private loans can have terms that are longer to that longer or shorter, but most federal loans and a lot of private loans too are 10 years. So let's go ahead and let's look at some interest. So it's really helpful to understand how interest works in terms of student loans. And unlike a car loan, where the buyer begins making payments right away, student loans, like I've said before, don't require payments until that repayment period. However, interest charges begin right away after the loan begins. So what happens to that interest? How is it charged? And there are a couple different scenarios that are listed here. So one scenario is called a subsidized loan. And this is a loan where the government pays the interest during the time a student is in school. And then when payments begin, the student only pays back the borrowed amount. Now, they do start the loan will accrue interest after the student is out of school, but the student won't be responsible for any interest while they are in school. And so this, I'm just going to put a smiley face. This is the best type of loan you can get. A lot of times the subsidized loans are only given when there's a financial need. This is definitely something that the student has to apply for with that FAFSA form. And then there's unsubsidized loans, and those are loans where the student does have to pay the interest that's charged during their time in school. The question is when they have to pay that interest. So if and these two bullets fall underneath the unsubsidized category. So if it's an unsubsidized loan, the interest can be handled in two ways. So unsubsidized loans could have interest that is capitalized, and that means no interest is paid before the repayment period starts. So meaning no interest is paid while the student is in school. And so it just accumulates and then is added to the amount that was borrowed, and that's all, wrapped into a monthly payment that the student makes after they're finished with school. And I would say most students have loans that are capitalized, where they're not making payments while they're in school. The other option is an uncapitalized interest, and this is when only interest is paid monthly by a student before repayment period starts. So that means while they're in school. So while the student is in school, they're making payments just on their interest. And then when payments begin after they're finished with school, then they don't have to worry about any interest prior to that point because they were making payments on it. And they just start making interest only starts accruing again at the point when they start making those monthly payments.